Hey folks, welcome back. I'm on the putting green today. It is a very windy fall day where I'm located today, but hopefully not too much interference because today I've got a topic a lot of people have been asking me about lately, which is our putting. Players say that they want to be more consistent putters. They talk about there's different types of putter lengths, putter head size, the way they grip the putter. There's a bunch of different variables, but what I want to break down today is the things that I look for when I'm talking about building the best putting stroke possible. And I think regardless of your putting history, what type of putter you have, these are a few non-negotiables that I think we have to understand properly in order to have the best putting stroke that we can. And then if we have to make a change to our stroke or our putter down the road, we have a good foundation to do it. The first thing that I'm going to talk about, which is I believe the most important, is how we grip the putter. And this doesn't matter to me if you're left hand low or not. Obviously, I'm not going to dive into claw because I don't spend a lot of time with the claw because I think there's a lot of things we can dive into beforehand. But when we talk about gripping the putter, the most important thing, which is often overlooked, is that your hands and your palms need to be facing each other. And what I mean by that, what I see oftentimes, I see a lot of people grip their putter like they grip their golf club. And I'll see something where their right hand gets very underneath, where right now my palms are not facing each other. I also see a lot of players that their right hand or their trail hand can get very on top and the palms aren't facing each other. If we want the hands and the arms to work together, the palms facing each other give us the best chance to do that. If our palms are pointing in different directions, they tend to work against each other a lot. And when I hear players that tell me that they struggle with an open putter face or a closed putter face, the first thing I'm looking at is there a connection between those palms? And normally there's not. Normally the trail hands ends up somewhere on the top or the bottom. So a check that I like to do is I get set up to hit a putt, and then now what I do is I just open my hands. And right now what I'm looking for is I open and I close them, is as I go through this exercise, are my palms facing each other? That's the first thing that we have to organize, are the palms facing each other. So once we move on from the palms facing each other, let's talk a little bit about the stroke. And there's a couple things that we have to do away with, or a couple misconceptions. We don't want to lock the wrists. We do not need to be I do not believe that we come in here and we lock the triangle and try not to move our arms. And then also a very important takeaway is a straight back, straight through putting stroke does not exist. It's physically impossible. And the reason why is because of the lie angle we have on our putter. If you had a putter which was straight up and down 90 degrees, which is illegal, and you were directly over top of it, there is a chance that you could have the smallest arc possible. But this putter is sitting on a 60-something degree lie, and as a result, there's always going to be a little bit of arc to our putting stroke. So if you think that you can just lock in your grip and keep the face perfectly square and then just go straight back, straight through, you're causing yourself a lot of issues, and I'm certain that you are currently not putting that well. So let's do away with that. Once we grip the putter properly now, and we know that we don't want to try to lock everything in, an important part when we set up that I like to look for players is where are our elbows pointing? And oftentimes when I see players that have a lot of wrist action, it's common that we see elbows that start to point out. Like my elbow itself is actually pointing out. And as soon as I have my elbows pointing out, normally what that does is that gets more wrist angle than I need. So a pro tip that we're looking for is our palms are facing each other and our elbows are facing in. So the next time, or what I want you to do right now, go grab your putter, and as you get set up to a golf ball, or if you're in your office or in front of the TV, just go ahead and get set up. And what I want you to do is you set up to a putt is two things. I want you to look, where are my elbows pointing? Are my elbows pointing out? Or are my elbows pointing in? And then are my palms facing each other? The reason why it is so important to have our elbows pointing in is the upper body has a job in the putting stroke. This putting stroke is not just going to be our arms and our hands. They have a job, and we need to make sure that they're doing their job. And the goal is that if we grip it properly and we get our elbows pointing in, we are actually connecting our arms to our upper body. And a visual that I like to have is when my elbows are pointing out, I can move them without my upper body moving a lot, and that makes me very disconnected. If I have my elbows pointing in, what happens is my bicep starts to rest up against my side, up against my rib cage. And now I'm a little bit more connected, and I can actually get the body moving with the arms to make a more connected, hopefully more repeatable stroke than having to work with the elbows pointing out. A way that we can check this, or something that I like to do, is I like to have players put an alignment rod underneath their armpits. And now we're going to come in and we're going to make sure that my palms are touching, my elbows are facing in. And now I'm just going to make a couple of putting strokes back and forth. And the alignment rod moving is coming from the fact that my upper body and my arms are moving together. If I go down the line here and I show you, we see this motion here. What happens with a lot of players when they try to do it with the arms is the stroke becomes more of like this up and down motion, like tilting up and down. And then our body tends to move side to side a lot. Instead of, if you watch the tip of the alignment rod here, how it's kind of rotating around, like it's arcing a little bit like the putter head will. That is something that is very important. So let's get our palms facing each other, our elbows in, and now let's make sure that our body feels connected. So if I was to grab a putter again, what I do is I go through my process. As I come in, I feel like my arms are, or my palms are facing each other, my elbows are in. And then now as I approach this golf ball, I have that feeling of the whole upper body driving with the arms connected. Palm facing each other, elbows are in, upper body driving or upper body turning, and it's okay if the putter head arcs. Some of you might notice that my ball position is forward. The next thing that I want to talk about with these putting basics is ball position. And something that wrecks a lot of good rolls is when the ball starts hopping. And we don't see it, but in super slow motion, what happens for a lot of golfers is they start to hit down on the golf ball because they just normally put it in the middle of their stance because that's what they've been told. And then that ball starts to bounce because we're hitting down on it. I believe that feeling like we're hitting up on the ball is important to help promote a forward roll. So what I do with a lot of players is I generally recommend as a starting point, now I know that this can vary from player to player, this is by no means a law, but from a ball position perspective, I like to have the ball slightly ahead of center. We'll call it maybe one ball ahead of center, because now if my weight is balanced and I feel 50-50, as I make that stroke with my body connected to my arms, that should promote hitting up on the golf ball and giving me a forward roll. Normally that'll always put us in a better starting position than when the ball gets back in our stance, or sometimes in the middle of our stance, and then a player comes down and they hit down on the golf ball, and that can really affect our speed control. So far we've talked about a couple of key things. Number one, palms facing each other, the way we grip the putter. Number two, we want our elbows in to help us feel more connected. Number three, we can check that connection with something like an alignment rod and watch as the body and the arms work together. And then number four, our ball position slightly forward. Now those are the key kind of setup things. So far if we do these things over and over and over, we should have some sort of structure set that gives us the best chance to have a repeatable stroke. The last thing that a lot of players miss, and a question I get a lot, is how far do we stand from the golf ball when we putt? Now, putting mirrors are very popular and they're very inexpensive. It's something that we see a lot of tour players use often. And the reason why we see them use it so often, or I believe one of the main reasons, is because the difference between me being here in my setup and here in my setup and here in my setup can have a drastic effect on the path, the way I take it back, and all those things. Similar to when we have a player that is never in the same spot with a full swing, I think it's even worse with our putting. And now you might not even be the person that your feet move a lot, but there's a big difference if your eyes are here if your eyes are here, or if your eyes are here. And I don't believe that there's one specific spot for players. Like everything I've talked about today, I don't think there's a specific thing you must do. I think there's a couple of things you need to make sure that you're doing consistently, and then we check to see what kind of roll that produces. Oftentimes when I give putting lessons, people don't have that good of a system. We're talking about the way we're gripping it, the way we're setting up to it, and then the way we're rolling it. And the last thing we're going to do is when we actually hit putts, get the ball in the mirror here, I get my grip set up, I get my putter down, and then now as I set up, I'm always checking to make sure where my eyes are. Right now my eyes are directly in line with my putter head and my golf ball. Right now my eyes are inside, and then right now my eyes are outside. I don't know where your eyes are or where they need to be, but what you need to know is where they are normally. And with that information, you can go to a coach, you can send me a message, and I can help you putt better just by knowing, are we doing things the same way every single time? I know for sure that if I have a player that sometimes their eyes are here, and sometimes their eyes are here, but then sometimes they're back here with their eyes here or there, that different setup every single time is going to produce a different result. So if you're struggling with your putting, or if you're going into the off season looking to improve your putting, one of the best tools you can get is a simple putting mirror. You can find some on Amazon for $9 or $10. They're very cheap, $20 probably at the most. You don't have to pay much more than that for a great feedback tool. So if you're heading into the off season, or maybe it's not fall where you are, maybe you're heading right into season, if you're struggling, there's 5 things we talked about today. There's 5 things that I believe you need to know how you're doing it currently, in hopes that we can work on and develop the changes we need to make to play better golf. And the 5 checkpoints I need you to make are these. Number 1, are your palms facing each other? Number 2, are your elbows pointing in towards your body, or are they pointing out? Let's get those pointing in. Number 3, with that setup, can we feel like our chest is driving and rotating a little bit as we hit this putting stroke? Okay, number 4, once we do that, we're going to come into this golf ball, and then we're going to make sure that our eyes are in the same spot every time. And then number 5 is ball position. I went in the wrong order there. Palms facing each other, elbows in, chest driving. Make sure our ball position is a little bit ahead of center. And let's make sure that we know where our eyes are every time with the use of a putting mirror. When I give putting lessons, these are some of the most common things I tackle. And if you're struggling with your putting, I suggest get an understanding for if you do any of those 5, or if you do all those 5. And if you look to get more information, or you look to start taking a lesson, you can go to a coach and say, I already know that I do these things, and then we can start to look at our putting stroke and where our face is aiming and all those fun things. So get those 5 things organized to help you get you on the path to have more repeatable stroke, which ultimately is here to help you make more putts. Thanks again for watching, folks. Have a great day.